Hello and welcome to the Messy Little Film Reviews. My name is Thea Touchton. We are going back at Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, one of my favorite shows. Honestly, I probably should have just live streamed because I love it so much, but I started the first one before I was really like live streaming movie reviews now, so makes sense to kind of continue it in this fashion. Also, like I already like started laying out photos that were great. And also, sometimes a live stream, it gets a little repetitive and already Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is super long. So maybe I will do, ironically, my least favorite seasons 3 and 4 on a live stream. But for now, this is what I got, my thoughts about the season, and feel free to chime in. It means so much too when y'all give us a subscribe and a follow, and you can check out all my donation links below. All that super helps. We even got merch. We got all these amazing things for you. All that helps me support my creative acts, and I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I just use kind of AI or things that I filmed throughout my life that remind me of these stories, and I create it for you, and it's this weird artistic little journey. So hope that you enjoy, and let me know what your thoughts are on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend season 2 rather. So we last left our hero and heroine Rebecca in a Cadillac. Super incredible awkward silence, okay, because Josh is super freaked that she moved to West Covina for him, and then Rebecca tries to gaslight him and is like, no, you moved here for me, which is crazy. You think this is going to be the beginning of their love story, but it's actually, not going very well at all. So anyway, Josh ends up apologizing because he's very susceptible to gaslighting. I mean, he dated Valencia forever. And Rebecca is like, okay, great. Like, I have it. So Josh is then staying at Rebecca's place because he moved on, but Josh still wants to keep things casual and is sleeping on the couch. And Paula is like, yo, you should have like just never told him. But she's like, we got fast food together, the bond. It's real when you're getting fast food with your person. But anyway, I think it was nice of Josh to give the apartment to Valencia. I think that Josh probably deserved the apartment in the fair thing, but like, what a gentleman. But yeah, him sleeping on the couch is not a good sign into their relationship. And yeah, the game seems to be over. And it should be like a good thing. It should be a win for her and Paula that he's moving there, but it is not amazing. Not amazing. So, Rebecca is like, I don't think I screwed up. Like, I think I recovered from it. But Paula is like, oh, no. And then Rebecca's like, don't worry, Paula. I gave a drawer for Josh to put his things in. And that drawer had also been previously used by Greg, which is not making Josh feel good. And she's like, listen, Greg's fine. Like, look, he apologized for his action at the wedding, and he's over there staying at his mom's house looking after his step-siblings because his mom's recovering from bad plastic surgery. And Paula's like, I don't think you're over Greg. And she's like, I don't know that Josh is your soulmate. And Rebecca gets really mad about it, but she can't think of like definitive proof that Josh loves her, which I love. I love Love Kernels. It's like a Beyonce Lemonade spoof. It's so good. Love Kernels. Oh, it's so amazing. But anyway, Paula proved that there was black mold, which raised her son's SAT scores, which is like honestly incredible. And Paula's like, you and Josh's relationship, like, it's basically an Airbnb with benefits, which is very, very funny. And Josh was, like, okay with leaving a few things there, but when he saw Greg's sweatshirt, it was a meh. And also, I kind of don't love Greg in his recovery for that, because I think he royally messed up to where one text is not enough. Although they are a little bit older adults than me, and I'm a chronic, like, quadruple texter. But I think she deserved a little bit more. I love in the lyrics too where it's like, my friend bailed, wanna come and love kernels, and then it's like, she's like, I'm the most important person in his life next to his friend. It's so real. If you've ever been in limerence, or if you've ever been trying to justify a relationship where he's just not that into you, which is another film review I'll be doing, let me know if you're excited for that one in the comments. This is a great one. Great just one. And he's like, when he's in the 3MP and he's like, what's up, I'm on his mind, which is just funny. And then I love, like, this literally ate up our production budget, Daryl is a broom on his stand, which is it didn't even seem like that expensive a shoot, so maybe that's a joke, but very, very funny. But anyway, Paula kind of thinks that Rebecca's acting like a child with this, but she is feeling like kind of empty nested in that her misadventures with Rebecca had like filled a void in her life, and she doesn't really quite know now what to do with that. I think that Vincent got better in his acting as these seasons went on. Sometimes I feel like it takes a moment sometimes to find a different character, and also obviously him being free of Valencia brings Josh to a new level, because I think Josh felt very controlled in that relationship and was not fully allowed to be who he wanted to be. But anyway, Josh is like open up to Hector about a situation, who Hector is like, oh, cool drawer, super cool, which is just really funny. Bit silly. And he's like, but anyway, he tells Hector that his relationship is undefined, and he's like, I am staying with Rebecca, and I'll tell Greg, like, eventually. And Josh doesn't like all of the expensive additions that Rebecca has put on his drawer. One of the handcuffs, which I'm saying are definitely sponsored by Amazon Prime, because I think I've seen them. Which, Rebecca, she always just shoots herself in the foot a little bit, and obviously too, I think is just like very messed up socially, because was very lonely as a child. But anyway, the handcuffs do make Josh kind of come around. They have sex, and Josh then starts to dream about Greg berating him for stealing Rebecca, and he feels really guilty. And he leaves, and he's like, I just have to clear things up with Greg, because the ethics of all of this are really, really confusing him. And we've all had those dreams that, are real, are way too real. So Rebecca is then trying to find Greg's whereabouts. She goes to talk to Greg's mother, who she then admits that she's had sex with his son, which is like, all right, maybe not an opener, but she is a bit desperate. She also talks to Chris and Kevin and Heather, but they don't really know about the whereabouts, or they're just not saying. And Heather is like painting toes like a potato. And meanwhile, Josh is like staying at work because of the guilt, which is not great, it's gonna definitely bite him in the butt. And eventually they find Greg at the Serrano residence, but she doesn't know that, because Greg's dad is helping like hide him, because Greg is like an alcoholic, and I think is dealing with a lot of shame of like what that addiction has cost him. So not amazing. Not going good there. Also, unfortunately, this Greg is going to be very, very short-lived in this season, making this one of the last good seasons to me, because I do think that he was so well cast and it was very hard to replace, and they like sort of try. I do like the guy who plays Nathaniel, but it's not the same, and we know it. But anyway, so Josh can't sleep at his work anymore, obviously, because that is not sustainable, and he is given a lecture about growing up. And then Rebecca is really envious of how White Josh and Daryl's relationship is going, and she kind of side ropes Paula in. She's like, we have to find Greg so I can get his blessing, so that Greg and so that Josh and I can be together. Freudian slip there, because I do think she loves Greg a lot. So Paula illegally tracks his cell phone and finds out where they are. And then Josh's mother is very excited that he's going to come back home, but Josh is like embarrassed about that, you know. I do like that White Josh and Daryl very much in love. I can't remember if it works out. I think it doesn't. Spoiler alert. So enjoy this while you can. I do love too that men are so avoidant that Paula has to track him. Which is a whole thing, you know. Welcome to dating in this day and age. So they find out that Greg has been going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they hear him, which is not their business, is very bad, about how Greg passed out in his own vomit, and like got arrested at like a cop stop, and he has to come here once a month, and he's just like angry that he has to be responsible for his own life, which is very, very relatable. But I'm not drinking as much as Greg or getting as much trouble when I'm drinking with Greg. I also don't overdrink. Like, one drink is enough, and only occasionally. But anyway, he's court appointed, so it's not going well for him. And Paula realizes too that she's like, oh, I have an addiction to Rebecca's drama. And Scott's like, well, we should replace this with something you're good at. And Paula's like, all right, I can't do the shenanigans, and I have to have a contract signed that no more shenanigans together, bestie. And Rebecca is actually impressed by that, but is obviously disappointed and signs it. And then Josh is really like, I don't know if I should move back in, because she's really creeped out by like how Hector's mother and son relationship is. And he kind of spirals back with Rebecca, where they have sex, where they should like, we should definitely not have sex right now, which is very, very good, but I've been there. But Rebecca really, really loves it, and Paula thinks she's going to apply to law school. Also, we've changed the theme to I'm just a girl in love, which I really, really love, as well. Is probably my favorite opening. This might be my favorite season. It's been a minute, so once I'm going through these notes, we'll kind of be able to see more. But I think obviously it like kind of found its footing, where there were, I feel like, a lot of abandoned plot points in the previous one. So anyway, Greg is kind of warned that, you know, like, okay, you seem good right now, but, you know, it's not going to be easy from a sponsor. And he's like, I'm doing fine. I'll even get the donuts. And Rebecca's like making meals for Josh, but he already ate. They haven't really seen each other a lot. And Rebecca's like trying to fix that. And so she's like, oh, we're going to do this. We should go to this like ping pong ball, which is called the paddle. And she like lies that she's an expert ping pong player. And she's like trying to plan like a Mai Tai sweepstakes with Paula, but Paula's like, bro, no, we cannot. I'm not doing any more of these immoral schemes. Like, remember our friendship contract, you know. I didn't trust myself. And I'm really glad she is practicing self-control, because Paula is very dangerous to have on your side in a crazy hair-braiding scheme. Like, she is bringing it in another level. And Greg is not really in a place in his recovery where sex wouldn't complicate it. And I really appreciated, I mean, they don't linger on this conversation, right? Because it's like CW. And it's a, kind of lightweight show. But I do think it's like, there is something to be said for when you are recovering, having the ability to be able to like take somebody else in, and clearly that is like a trigger for Greg. So anyway, Rebecca's like trying to recover from her lie. She's researching in it, and Paula is like, guess what? Like, I'm gonna go to law school. And she sings this whole ridiculous kind of enchanted Snow White in terms of like soprano level song about the struggle towards the dream, about how she has to pee after having like 2 babies. Which is, I listen, I love the actor of Paula. I don't like a lot of Paula's songs. Like, it's just, I don't know, they were just never my style. But anyway, she gets Rebecca to promise that she'll write her a letter by Friday of recommendation. And she's really excited that her dream might come true. And she doesn't take Daryl's offer to write her a reference letter, which she should have both, because why not have 2? But okay, whatever. Anyway, Rebecca hires this guy to teach him the game, which is, again, pay attention to Rebecca's spending habits, because they are going to come into play. And then Greg goes to home base and is kind of in a situation because he's like, I don't have to serve you alcohol, but he also can't have like beer, battered shrimp, right? Because that is part of his problem. And we get another banger, which I love, because he opens up about, returning to work and dealing with his addiction. And he tells him about this DUI arrest and his rehab for his alcohol. And he's like, you know what, it's my problem, not theirs. And he does this whole like drinking history through Greg's drinking song, which is so, I love it so much. Like an Irish jig sort of a song. It's so, so fun. And he's like, like, you can drink around me. I have a problem. You don't. And, don't stop on my account. Like, I'm kind of the problem here. So anyway, Josh is like talking this over with Father Bra, and Father Bra is like, yeah, I don't think you should tell him about you and Rebecca. But Greg shows up too with Heather, so maybe it doesn't even matter. But I think that Josh should, out of just the bro code, and clearly Greg really, really cared about Rebecca. I think when he does tell him about Rebecca, Greg is surprisingly chill. But we'll get to that. So Greg makes an apology to Heather because of his 12-step program, and Josh blurts out the whole confession, and Greg does take his moment, but he does seem okay with it. And Heather's like, are you repressing your true feelings? But he's like, no, I'm fine. But Greg then goes into the back room and punches a wall. So not okay is the answer. So Paul is like, hey, remember the letter? And then Becca's like, no, I got it. But she is so focused on ping pong girling, only to slight improvement. And she imagines how impressed Josh will be. And she does not nail the talent portion of that. And Paula opens up to her husband about her anxieties of going back to school. And Greg doesn't really, he forgets about all of the donuts and all of that. So anyway, Greg tried to shrug this off of like, oh, it's love, who cares? And Rebecca gets all involved with this stuff that she forgets the recommendation letter, which is just this is like a very big thing with Rebecca, that she will constantly kind of become a very bad friend, because she's very much like the girl. We used to joke about this in like middle school with my gay best friend at the time, but we'd always be like, my boyfriend, like when you get a boyfriend that you just don't shut up and you just keep talking about how like he's your boyfriend. But anyway, so Hector is like, hey, I invited Greg here when he's not here. And Josh is like, oh gosh, like, what about my concession? And White Josh is like, you and Rebecca are together. And Rebecca finds him. And she's like, listen, I was trying to tell you, but I couldn't find you. And he's like, listen, I was just like embarrassed. You know what I mean? Who maybe 90s ping pong girl should be, but whatever. You know, but Rebecca has no shame, which we kind of unabashedly love about her, right? So anyway, his DUI was after the wedding date, and he was driving over to tell Rebecca that he loved her, and he's like, listen, I messed up with you, and that's fine, and be with Josh as long as you're happy. And then the ping pong guy needs a ride home. But yeah. So, of course, all that causes Rebecca to miss the deadline, but she's like, I still support you. And it's like, bestie, like, what? Stop. Like, just get it together. And she gets really upset that Josh is not very sensitive to what Greg's going through in her own feelings. And she, again, is clutching Greg's Emery sweatshirt. So, we're at row. There's more feelings involved. But, you know. Anyway, Rebecca is talking to a polyamorous trio because she's saying that she's doing an article, but she kind of really wants something for Greg, and it's like a love triangle, which is also a very fun musical number. Like, all of these musical numbers, they just keep eating. And so Rebecca discusses this with her therapist, and she's like, neither of these men are offering you a relationship. And she's like, anyway, I'm going to look for signs from the universe here to choose. And Greg's father kind of delivers this blow that Greg's dad is gonna sell the house. Anyway, Paula went with Daryl's recommendation letter because Rebecca's wasn't on time. And it was a bit silly during their previous conversation also that he like yelled at the dinosaur donut, because it's such a silly one. And Greg, again, you know, he's struggling with alcohol. He uses it to black out and his like own emotions, and like he broke his hand punching the wall about how he feels for Rebecca. So clearly something big is going on. And he's like, you can't expect me to instantly move on. Like, I need time. And, you know, you ignore me, so that's my obvious type. And I really, you know, like, I loved you. I literally drunk drove because I was going to say that I loved you. And he wants Josh to respect her, which Josh is not respecting her at all. And Rebecca still is having this fantasy about, like, both of them loving her. And I love, like, the math of triangles where, like, she is really getting it all wrong. And it never works out as somebody who has tried to also pursue the love of two men at a time, if only, right? So his dad sold the house because he's like, you should go to business school, Greg, like, that is important, and I can afford a retirement home, and you can go to Emery Anniversary. And Rebecca realizes that her cycle hasn't begun, and Rebecca vomits in a nearby trash can, and she's like, oh gosh, I'm having Josh's child because I'm late and nauseous. And she's like, okay, this is a sign. Like, I don't need to get tested. Like, I'm there. Um, and Josh freaks out because obviously he wanted this casual thing with her, and she's pregnant, and that's pretty much, you can't really, I mean, you can try to be casual, but it's not amazing. But the reason they find out about this too is because they have an app, and her and Paula have this cycle sync blood coven, which is a bit funny. But yeah, so Greg is like, I'm gonna go to Emory, so I need a new sponsor. But he's kind of indecisive about it because obviously he still likes Rebecca. And Josh notices like the prenatal vitamin, so that's how he kind of freaks out and finds out. And she also like rambles about it. And then she gets her period anyway. And they do period sex, which is very funny. I love that song too. But he's not into it, and he's like, yeah, we should not see each other in ladies, which is honestly very, very horrible of him. Like, just like, you should wait a couple of days to leave somebody, you know what I mean, who is maybe on their period. Like, it's just not amazing. So anyway, she skips work and goes for a walk because that's kind of horrible. And Paula is like super worried that she hasn't had her period yet. And Paula's too afraid to take a test because what are her results going to be? And she sees Greg, and they're like, oh, we like ran into each other. And Greg kind of pulls her into a kiss, and she's like, you know what, I'd like to try again. And he's like, okay, then meet me here at this bridge tomorrow at sunset. Because he's like, I don't want to miss out. But Greg's dad kind of gives him this advice and is like, Rebecca is poison. Like, you might as well be at rock bottom. You know what I mean? Like, with her, like, it's not good to go back with her. Like, she is clearly a trigger for you. And Dr. Konopian, her therapist, is really frustrated because she's like, it's supposed to be with Greg. And to put the pressure even more on Paula, Daryl is like, I got you early admission. And Paula's like, great, like, now I'm pregnant and I might have to delay it. And Greg, unfortunately, kind of got that worm that his dad put in his head, got it in there, and he ends up kind of leaving poor Rebecca all alone on that because he thinks that she is trouble, which sucks because obviously Greg's dad is alone and doesn't really know, but he just sees danger when he's with Rebecca, so it is what it is. And then poor Paula is like so upset, and she ruins the festive activator with her like new hire Maya, who ends up being like kind of a little big comedian deal after a while. You recognized her probably in a bunch of stuff. So Rebecca just goes home and drinks wine until she falls asleep, and she sees that Greg is leaving town. He's saying goodbye to all of his friends, kind of parting them, and we lose a king. We lose a good king over here. And so she goes to LAX, which is in itself a nightmare already. So he and Josh are left, and Josh is like, you can always come back. And Greg's like, yeah, I'm not going to return. And he's like, I'm sorry about Rebecca. And Josh is like, and Greg is like, you know what, it's all in the past. So they share a hug, and Greg heads for the gate. But Rebecca catches up to him and is like, what? You're just going to leave? Like, you're not going to say anything? And that's where that episode ends. Sorry, I'm pushing my cat off because he has no boundaries like another amazing person we know. So anyway, Greg reveals that he's moving to Atlanta because he's finally going to go to Emory University, and he's like, I love you. I do. But our relationship has always been a mess, and I need to move on, and he has no regrets about what happens, and he'll never forget her. So it'd be also an amazing song, It Was a Shit Show, which is so so relatable. This thing we had was not just bad, it was a shit show. So great, like just an amazing song. Like I just love it, and it's very real, you know what I mean? Like, and I think there's like a very real honesty to be like, this was more bad than good in love. So Rebecca is depressed because Greta is left, but Josh has rejected her too. And Paula doesn't really want to talk to Rebecca about her unexpected pregnancy, because especially she's like at her own low. So meanwhile, Rebecca is imagining Greg and Josh taunting her, and she's like, the apartment has like too many memories with both the men, which is also another fun song. We tap that ass all over this house, which is also very relatable to me, because it's like, this is what I hated about when I was domestically abused in my own houses. It's like you can't ever get rid of that the own memory of that. So it is not fun. They also have this like huge butt to bang on, which is a bit funny, and they finished not on like a chest but also on furniture, and she's not doing well about it. She doesn't love all that is happening. So Rebecca is like, okay, I gotta get out of my heartbreak. So she starts setting fire to the items that happened to Greg and Josh, and then the flames get out of control, so she calls for emergency assistance. So she just burns all the stuff in the house, and which is, and also something that Rebecca has a pennant for, which is crazy. So she can't stay at her fire damaged place. She goes to Heather's, and then she meets her friend's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, who I don't think remember her, or Heather didn't remember, or she doesn't remember them, Rebecca, or Heather didn't remember them. Somebody doesn't remember somebody, okay? And yeah, she just can't even remember them, because she was so kind of just like in her kind of like psychosis in a way. I guess that's what you can call it. But she sleeps in her homes at night, and Miss Davis lends Rebecca clothes for work, and she realizes that her 911 call was uploaded onto YouTube and became viral, which is not ever fun. Then in the ultimate crossover episode, Petra from Jane the Virgin, who I've done a bunch of reviews on that in this channel if you want to check it out. Maybe I'll link them one day when my ADHD gets it together. But anyway, Petra is Miss Douche. Iconic, incredible. No notes. And anyway, Becca gets inspired. She wants to become Miss Douche, but it's a voting competition now because of the conflict of interest, because they showed up at her work. She's like, Paula, why don't you take over? Because she wants to be the new face of the product, just kind of, I guess, in a way to like win the breakups. So anyway, Scott, Paula's husband, is trying to show her that they can share the house responsibilities, but it's not really working out. And Josh also makes fun of Rebecca's costume. And Rebecca ends up giving the Miss Douche bit to Heather because she just doesn't have her shit together. And meanwhile, poor Paula is also going to get an abortion that she doesn't tell Rebecca about, because obviously she's already had a lot of kids and she just feels like she's getting into her groove. And Rebecca's going through a lot. So it just really breaks my heart that she doesn't open up to Rebecca about this. Like, it's just really sad. Anyway, Heather's parents are helping Rebecca prepare, and they give her like a whole makeover, but Josh just laughs at her. And she also got like bots to like her Instagram post when she was trying to win. And Josh's pity also caused Rebecca to kind of sink into a deeper depression. And yeah, Heather ends up getting it because she's chill and more laid back for the Miss Douche. Sorry, y'all, I have a headache, but I'm trying to push through. I'm trying to push through no matter what. Anyway, Paula is presenting as the city planning manager, but her credentials are questioned because she's like, I'm not a lawyer, but she gets praised anyway for excellent work, and her petition is approved. And then Heather's parents are consoling Rebecca, and Heather's like, I won the competition. I won $10,000, and she's moving out because they don't parent her, and that's like holding her back, which I think is true as somebody who wasn't also super parented. And Heather is like, here, we're gonna move in together because I need your credit score and I need good advice. And so Rebecca comes and visits Paula when she's having an abortion, but Paula just doesn't tell her anything. Again, heartbreaking. I hate it. And then Rebecca turns to her apartment and says goodbye to it, and Greg and Rebecca and Heather are at Sugarface, and they're looking for a place online, but then they run into disheveled Valencia. Bum, bum, bum. Rebecca believes that her and Valencia need to blood bond due to this like kind of blood and lice theory to fully get over Josh. And Valencia, though, she's not good right now. She's eating carbs. I don't think she's at her wedding goal weight. And Rebecca goes to Paula's law school to support her friend, but Paula is bonding with a new classmate named Sunil, who is the father of two and a recent widower because his wife committed suicide. And yeah, Valencia's overeating, so she's not doing great. And Rebecca and Valencia is still like, yeah, you know what, like, she chose to end things with Josh, and Rebecca was like always a rebound, so like that they're different, they can get over it. And I don't know, it's hard because Valencia was Josh's like serial girlfriend, and she's just like, there's like very kind of like a dark thought about how she dealing with all of this, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, especially like that we're gonna find out that she's gay, spoiler alert, and that is definitely like impacting all of that. But anyway, Rebecca's gonna end up kidnapping Valencia and taking her to a festival because that's just what you have to do to bond with females in this day and age, you know? You just have to kidnap them. Sometimes, I've never personally tried it, but it happens. And yeah, Valencia was refusing to hear about her obvious depression, was in kind of denial. And then Josh comes in early to organize the back room, and his boss is like, yeah, Josh, I think you're a girlfriend guy and you're having trouble to be alone with his own thoughts, which gives us this great song, Thought Bubbles, which I relate to so much. It's so good. I love it so much. And then it's just it's very relatable as a song. He's also in denial like Valencia, so we saw they got it. And anyway, so they go to the San Gabriel Valley version of Burning Man, Electric Mesa, so that's where she's taken Valencia. She makes her think that they're going to Dairy Queen, but Valencia agrees to stay, and because she has nothing else better to do. And poor Paul and Sunil get rude to by a classmate after they just asked like what kind of note app they're using, which is so Dumb. But I don't know, people will be like that in college. Anyway, so Rebecca and Valencia, they're doing this group sensory meditation, and she can't focus, and she keeps asking. And then Daryl gets upset because he finds out that White Josh and Carl used to date. And then the speakers at Aloha Tech short out because somebody peed on the equipment. And I don't know, I'm kind of bored with Daryl being worried about White Josh's old ex because it's just a dumb trope, but it's CW, so I guess. And obviously it's kind of, I think, overwhelming, him probably being divorced and gay, and that's like his first gay person, but not, not the other way around. Then we have this kind of BMX Girl Squad takeover song where Heather is the cool girl. She puts drugs in the water supply. That song, which I think it's kind of like a Spice Girls fun, but it's very interesting. Anyway, yeah, somebody peed on the speaker at the fest that they're at, not at Aloha Tech, just to clarify. So Josh is on his way to where Valencia and Rebecca are, and Sunil and Paula are now scheming together on this classmate because she's like having a new friendship. This is kind of the vibe of this episode, is that Paula and Rebecca are expanding their friend groups, and that of course might wreck the like kind of toxic only bestie relationship that they had, but we also need more characters for this to be interesting. So it is all going to work out, but this is the awkward episode where we're trying it out. Anyway, Valencia and Rebecca have a drink that is laced out with this drug, Triceratops, and they have this hallucinogenic experience, and Rebecca gets really angry at Josh, thinking that he took advantage of her and Valencia, which I think you could argue, which is really, really true. And she realizes that she kind of wants to kill Josh, wherein Valencia is just so sad about it. And she's very upset because she's like, they were done before, like, she even dumped him. And Daryl is like freaking out because White Josh is very attracted to older men, as all of his exes that you can see, which would probably be jarring, for sure. I mean, my current boyfriend right now, I'm 15 years younger than, and it is jarring to find that he likes younger girls in a way that y'all cannot believe. But anyway, so she says to Valencia that she should pee on the equipment to get back at Josh, and then we're all in the girl squad kind of thing, and then Brecca's the brainy mind control one, and Valencia is Saw of torture. It's very sexy. I also am like, I can't get over that Valencia is like a filter on Instagram. That's when I first heard of that name, so I wrote that down because I was like, that's pretty funny. Anyway, Suni and Paula are like breaking into their classmate's dorm room and downloading the note-taking app from this laptop, which is like crazy. Also, I'm not very interested in this relationship, and don't worry, it does not last long. And Josh catches his exes about to pee, and they are unapologetic, and they yell at him for how badly he treated them. And Valencia and Rebecca are complimenting each other and getting together. And Rebecca comforts Daryl and is like, just, like, be honest with White Josh. Like, because obviously I have not benefited from not being honest, so try that. And Daryl is like, yeah, I'm really insecure that I'm not as interesting as all the other men that you've dated, which I think is probably true. And White Josh is like, yeah, I'm worried that you're fleeing to Daryl, like, I haven't even met your daughter. And he's like, oh, I just didn't want to pressure you. And they both kind of agree they want to take the relationship to the next level. And I like this part. I felt like this is a very, like, honest conversation and something you don't get to see between men or even, like, gay men on TV a lot. And then Josh is kind of being like, hey, I'm gonna swear off women, I think, with my exes. But then he's approached by an attractive female who's like, oh, thank you for saving the festival. So liar, liar, pants for hire. And then Daryl and White Josh Madison meet, and it goes well. And Rebecca is creating. I think I put the girl group episode on too heavy. Sorry, a little early. But I'm excited about it. Okay, it's one of the best fun songs. But anyway, so a girl group is forming between Rebecca, Valencia, Heather, and Paula, and it's gonna get crazier. Okay, and as I accidentally ADHD headache brain explained to friend Tobia earlier, no worries, this is the episode where it takes place. Basically, Rebecca invited Paula over with Heather and Valencia because she kind of incorrectly feels like Paula is being left out, even though it's Daryl and Maya who are really feeling left out. And she kind of convinces Paula that they're just going to be on some alone time, which Paula's probably like really happy to talk about, but in reality it's this like lady sex toy party with Karen. So not going amazing. And Paula has like a new friendship bracelet with Sunil, like, so is kind of in her own way like having a different bond. And Josh also likes the blonde girl from the festival, Brittany Snow. And then meanwhile, Trent is back in town and wants Rebecca's affection. So he's like purchasing some SoCal Bro clothes for a scheme, and he's gonna become part of Josh Chan's crew, basically. Which is just wild. I love that he like monologues. It's so amazingly autistic. And I believe that a lot of people who go to Harvard are autistic. So anyway, he is gonna infiltrate that group pretty easy because obviously Josh and all of his friends are pretty chill, but like he's able to hang out with them, but they still find him super weird and off-putting because he totally is. And then Karen, the employee, disappears and she becomes Angelique, which I really remember being very funny. And Maya and Daryl are going to try to force their way into Rebecca's party. And Paula's just really like annoyed at all of this. And then she ends up getting stuck inside of the bathroom, which is another great kind of spoof. Like, Paula's stuck in the bathroom. And I did not know that it was spoofing, but it's so good. I love it a lot. No notes. Yeah. So once Rebecca kicks the door in, a single of the ceiling like kind of blocks into the doorway and traps even more, and they have to call emergency services. Like, if you took a drink every time they're calling emergency services in the show, you are going to be so drunk, by the way. And she sees that Paula, because Rebecca gets to like look at her phone, and she sees that Sunil had to come, like, she was like, can you think of like a fake emergency to rescue her? And he gets surprised because there like actually ends up being an emergency, but it just turns out like, like Paula was basically like talking trash on her, which is kind of shitty. Like, I do think that Paula could have tried more, even if Rebecca lied. Like, I think having some understanding that it's like it might have been weird for her to just ask if she all wanted to hang out, and like while Paulie wasn't the best to surprise it, I wish that like I feel like Paula, as like slightly the older friend, should know. But anyway, whatever. Trent comes in also, and he is able to like lift the debris to free her, which is super strong. And they get into an argument about how one-sided their friendship is, Rebecca and Paula. And she's like, I couldn't even tell you I had an abortion. And that obviously like shocks Rebecca. And she's like, but that's not fair. Like, I asked you if something is wrong, which I think Rebecca has some points there. And Daryl and Maya show up and perform a dance routine. They rehearse at the office. We go and keep it rolling, which is not very good, but I love the attempt. I think that they are so funny. Like and it was much needed levity and into how hard that is. And anyway, Trent helps with like sad Rebecca, who's now losing kind of a friend in a way because she's at a very low point. And so she takes Trent's virginity, and Daryl and Maya's dance become popular again. Everybody's just easily a celebrity on YouTube over here. I don't know how. And they are loving that they can do the dance. But Rebecca and Paula are still upset, and they're not talking to. And yeah, Trent does eat out Rebecca, which is, I guess, a plus, but he's still so weird. So Paula and Rebecca are still fighting, but Rebecca doesn't want to fight anymore. She starts ignoring her, but then she's like, she comes to it because she hates when she's fighting. She's like, she shouldn't have to like ask what's wrong with Paula, she should say, but Paula is just like, I don't think that our friendship can be easily repaired, and she's just like really obsessed with law school to the point where it's making her forget like even her husband, who has this barbershop quartet coming up for his work party. And he encourages Paula to fix things with her, but I feel like Paula's just like, I only need one friend and my husband and I'm good. I think she's being a kind of a jerk while this season. Paula has her moments for sure, like where I'm not her biggest fan. That's why I kind of like that they gave Rebecca a bigger girl group. But anyway, so Josh gets Anna this gift for her pet cat, Gravy. Rest in peace. We're going to get to that in a second. Anna's eyebrows are super big. But I do love the coffee shop that they're in, Specificity. And then, respectively, even though Heather warns them not to, Valencia and Rebecca both stalk Josh, even though they were supposed to be taking an internet cleanse. And then we get this banger, research me obsessively. It's like very kind of poppy, Selena Gomez-esque, but it's amazing. And they're like, this is so crazy that like the successful beauty mongrel hip person would be interested in Josh. Like, we've got to get to the bottom of this. And Scott's coworker Tanya is like, ooh, I'm excited to see your barbershop performance, which is like, okay, what's going on there, And then Rebecca and Valencia find Anna's eyebrow salon, and they are like hiding while she walks outside, and they eavesdrop while she talks to a client about a shipment. And then they see a customer exiting the salon with a white powder, and then they're like, oh my gosh, she's a drug dealer, and they're gonna go tell Josh. But then Rebecca accidentally hits Anna's pet cat, Gravy, and Anna runs out of the store and is like, who hit my cat? And they're like, oh my god, it was a hit and run. And Rebecca's then like, okay, we'll drive you to the vet clinic. And then they hide their identities, and they call themselves Madge and Allegra, which I can't. Oh my god, it's so bad. It's just not, I can't. It's just one of the worst names ever. But anyway, they pretend to ask her questions from a clinic form, and then Gravy ends up being okay. And Anna's like, yeah, because she talks about like the collar that Josh got her cat, and she's like, yeah, we haven't been dating long, but he's already really helping out our business because he's transporting a popular product across the border to Mexico. And she's like, he has like two exes, one that hounded him to propose for years, and the other was so crazy, moved across the country to stalk him, and then begged him for sex when she was on her period. But she's like, I'll find out who hit Gravy because I have surveillance cameras. So now Rebecca and Valencia have this big thing because they have to go and break into the office to erase any of the evidence tactic. And not amazing, but I get it. Like, we already got this far, so might as well, I guess. So, Allegra stole Anna's keys, so they snuck into the salon. And then meanwhile, Scott is waiting for Paula's arrival when they're about to sing, but Paula lost track of time because she's studying with Sunil. And then she remembers, but they are just finishing their encore. And Scott is really distracted. Rebecca successfully erases the footage. And then I think Paula being distracted is obviously providing a little something for, like, Tanya to be here. Which is not so good, not so great. Especially that they have children together and, like, she literally just had an abortion. But anyway, Rebecca and Valencia watch Anna give white powder substance to a client, but it's just for eyebrow growth. And anyway, then they come across another video where Josh tells Anna that he has feelings for her that he hasn't had with anybody else. And Rebecca and Valencia are just really sad. They go to home base to kind of commiserate, but while Valencia loves Rebecca's friendship, she's like, I'm not gonna wallow anymore, and she just takes a random guy home, and she's done, which is so Valencia, and I love it. And then they have this 80s kind of ballad of Paula and Rebecca missing each other, and they're like, but they're not gonna apologize unless, like, you go first, which is, they're both very stubborn. But I do like this 80 bullets with the So Wild mullets, and I just think it's pretty realistic. So Paula's husband opens up that he got drunk the night before and slept with his coworker Tanya, and Paula's like, okay, move out. And then she berates Tim, and Rebecca thinks that that's all about her, because Tim forgot to refill the ice cube tray in the break room. And then she's, like, crying, and Mr. Hernandez, who has talked, but Rebecca was so, like, involved in herself, she never even realized. And she's like, you need to stop making this about yourself. You need to just go be there for Paula. So she does, and Paula's now like, I don't think I can handle my kids on my own, and I'm now, like, not going to be able to go to this field trip in Sacramento, out of the question. But Rebecca's like, no, I'll help you. Like, I'm really sorry about everything that happened. Like, I'll help you out with your sons. And then Josh is sick and showing around Anna, and he invites her to an event, but she's like, says she's gonna be too busy at the salon, and, like, won't kiss him because she's scared of getting sick. And meanwhile, Rebecca is, like, gonna look after Tommy so she can go on her field trip, and she apologizes for having taken Paula for granted, and she really wants to make up for her selfishness. And Rebecca is very confident about taking care of Tommy with maternal, but she gets exhausted, like, 12 hours later, which I think is very relatable. But I like this, like, 80s sew material. Gets to be a mom unwrapping, like, an unpeeled banana and a tortilla. It's just very funny. And she takes Tommy to the grocery store to pick up stuff, but she runs into sick Josh, and she's like, hey, sorry about, like, the last time, but they're like, hey, let's be friends. And she sends over soup to Josh because he wasn't feeling well, and obviously she's always forever sweet on him. And meanwhile, Josh thinks that soup is from Anna, and Josh, like, uploads it to Instagram that he's, like, thankful for the soup, and then Rebecca's like, It's Anna didn't do it, I did. So she's gonna go to Spiders, and then she takes Tommy with her to the club so she can let Josh know the truth. And Heather is making an appearance as the Miss Douche spokesmodel there. But it's so dumb. She also gives him $100, and then he of course buys porn with it, Tommy. And he also like had to listen to Josh have sex with his girlfriend, which is pretty nasty, but Heather also gets it. So it's going very well. It's going very well. Hector and White Josh are there at all, and Anna even comes in, but Rebecca hides when she sees Anna. And Heather and her are like looking for Tommy because of course he's like hiding, and they have to listen to her and Anna, Josh and Anna having sex. And they are mortified because they see Josh make a spectacle of himself in a like kind of a lowbrow fashion expo. And Rebecca's getting repeatedly nervous because she literally lost her best friend's son that she said was going to do bad, and she got caught up with her own selfish stuff again. And Anna was like so repulsed by kind of his sexy dance that with his sleeves ripped up that she but she's just over it, so she just dumps him, which is kind of dumb, like especially that like she does eyebrows. Like I feel like that kind of girl would love this, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a beauty mom girl does it. And yeah, I guess they were gonna maybe try to stop the sex, but then they were scared that Rebecca and Heather were gonna think that they were like together in the stall together, which was a bit funny. And Tommy lies to cover up for Rebecca, which is nice of him. Just says that they were like working on a volcano or whatever all day. And Josh gets this duh moment because it was Rebecca who set him soup because he finds like the lengthy card with Shakespearean. And Josh is like, oh, I'm supposed to be with Rebecca all along. Duh. The whole duh song, like, so stupid, which is, I love it. And I am sad that, spoiler alert, they may not end up together. And I ship them a lot. And I kind of ship her and Trent, too. It's complicated. And her and Greg, and her and Nathaniel. But there's a part of me that is sad that this doesn't go the way that it needs to go, okay? But it's also pretty realistic that way. Anyway, Paula had come home early, but gratefully Tommy was there too, and did the cover story, which is good, so she doesn't have to lie more, but not great. And Tommy also has a fake ID. And now Josh wants Rebecca, which is good. And Paula's like very happy on her reliability. And Paula insists that she go with Josh, even though Rebecca's like a little hesitant. But she's like, hey, you know what? Like, my friend just got back, and, I'm going to spend some time with her, actually. And Josh is like, okay, but I'm not going to give up on us getting back together. And Rebecca's like, what? And then Rebecca is like, I got to tell you what actually really happened with Tommy, actually. And she's like, wow, you came and stayed and owned up to your own mistakes rather than running off with Josh. Like, you are changing. You've really proven your friendship. And you know what? Like, I forgive you, and I'm really, like, happy. You know what I mean? Like, happy that you're changing for the better in that way. So that's very sweet. Yay, the power of female friendship. But of course, Rebecca is avoiding Josh because what a big confession, right? Like, it's a bit scary. So she just keeps trying to help Paula. And Paula eventually just kind of escalates things. She lets Josh come inside and he begs Rebecca to take him back. And Paula's like, no, you should be with him. And tells Josh that she cannot break her heart again. And so they're connecting with each other. They're in love. I love the great like triple X sign, and they get into the call-in of the like accidents, and it's all the gratifying things when she like first moved in from the opening. They're like eating pretzels. They cancel work to be together, and they're just reconnecting. And then they're gonna go to the Raging Water Parks. But Heather's like, hey, Daryl's been trying to contact you, and she's like, okay, I guess I have to go back into work. So she goes, and she's like, Josh, just wait in here, and I'm just gonna go into this meeting. And then Rebecca learns that Daryl sold half of the law firm and is introduced to her new boss, Nathaniel Plimpton III, okay, who is super mad that she's 25 minutes late. He's now the co-owner. Rebecca hates this whole thing. And Nathaniel's office is now what Daryl's used to be. And he's like, yeah, Rebecca, now on, your job needs to be main priority. He insults Josh, whom you mistakes to be this like water cooler guy, which is very racist, but also very Nathaniel. He makes $250K and he's gonna fire people. And they do this fun song where it's like, who's that new guy? We can't trust him, which is very, very cool. And Rebecca just quits in response, but Nathaniel doesn't matter. And he's like, great, I can fire less staff without you on the payroll, and I don't have to pay my $250,000 debt for buying the firm. And I'm like, I can take back revenue and I can prevent this. And so she's like, I'm not going to resign. So they're all scared about the layoffs, and Rebecca apologizes to Josh, but she's like, I now have to like find some wealthy clients because I don't want all of my friends to like lose, you know, their jobs. So I'm so sorry. And then very, very stupidly, Nathaniel has this whole like, well, the Nathaniel machine doesn't eat bad food, and and he keeps trying to own more shares. He had like contacted Daryl's ex-wife, which is such a shark, and she's very much wrestling with like happiness before success. But she does get embarrassed at Josh because Maya asked her to replace the water cooler, which amuses Nathaniel. Rebecca moves things out of her old office, which is now Daryl's, into a cubicle next to Paula's desk, and is like, no, it's going to be okay. And then Daryl has lunch with Nathaniel and is like, hey, maybe you should be, you know, a little bit gentler when you're managing the firm. And Nathaniel's like, yeah, again, I did buy all the shares from your ex-wife, and I'm now the majority owner, so I don't really have to listen to anything you say. And then Rebecca's working after hours, trying to drum up business, and then she sees that Nathaniel's there too, and he's making a list of employees he's going to fire. And she gets meetings from potential clients, so she's really going to help figure this out. They unfortunately do fire George, but I think we'll be okay, which prompts a big George's turn, like Rosie's turn, if you're a musical theater nerd. But Rebecca annoys Josh by complaining about Nathaniel, which is not a really great, you know, vouch for Josh. Like, I think you need to allow your woman some time to complain about her work, and Nathaniel is a piece of work, but maybe he can also kind of sense the sexual chemistry that is occurring between these two. So Rebecca reminds Daryl about an upcoming meeting when she finds him with White Josh, who is, you know, kind of comforting him about his business decisions. And Rebecca is now doing like the man golf thing. You know, that's the way you can find a lot of wealth, is on the golf course. Who they only talk about, you know, they only like male heritage, and they like to entice no bra Fridays. So really, really great people. But she's working with them. They're owners of a country club, and she has an idea to dismiss a lawsuit filed by them by a neighboring cemetery. And they're impressed, but Nathaniel's like, they didn't sign a contract, and he's like, Yeah, and that's what prompts him to fire George, to show that he's serious. And Rebecca and Josh's family goes out, and they ended up loving Nathaniel because he's there too. And he still thinks that, like, Josh is the water cool boy, and Nathaniel, like, kind of points out to Rebecca, like, you know, like, you're with this guy, like, he's really boring, which, like, in comparison to Rebecca is, like, true. Like, Josh is just, like, some dude, you know what I mean? Like, and seriously. But anyway, he got into her head successfully. She can't stop thinking about his criticisms as Josh, and that causes her to snap, which I've been there too. And basically we have this whole kind of digging graves metaphor with the cemetery, and Paula can't get out of it, and they find in the cemetery burial fraud, which is kind of a fun one. Paula has to go on a date with a graveyard security guard named Castleman. I think this is where they do the cringe, maybe. At one point they do that, which is a very fun one. It's Patton Oswalt. She ends up having to go to like a touch tank with Patton Oswalt with Paula, which is very funny. But while Rebecca saved at the job, she did yell at Josh, not only in front of him but in front of his parents, which is a bit rough. So Rebecca then leaves to go join Paula to find out all this investigating the graveyard to secure a contract, and Paula proves Rebecca's theory correct because she finds that they are just burying more than one body in the same plot. The security guard causes Rebecca to run off, but abandon Paula's, and Paula returns to her call where there is Rebecca, and they go to Nathaniel to tell him what happened, but he's still not satisfied, and he's still gonna fire, and she's like, please reconsider, and he insults both her and Josh, and she chases him around the room with a pen, which is very funny, and everybody just watches them struggle, and they are told that the cemetery dropped their lawsuit, and they suspect that it's their, it's because of that, and so they officially hire the firm, and Nathaniel has to tell the staff that the jobs are safe for now. And Rebecca apologizes to Josh, and then she's like, hey, why don't we role play, like, I can chase you around with a pen, like, also saying that, like, clearly her and, Nathaniel are having a little, there's a little something going on there, and unfortunately, I ship them a lot, so, I don't know what to say about that, but it is what is happening. It is what's happening. So then, Karen is concerned about the devil winds, the Santa Ana winds, which we do not talk about enough as Californians, that are arriving in West Covina. And Rebecca's like, no, we need to focus on something more important, the engagement ring. Because they have that whole little thing of, like, they're fun, we'll never have problems again, which is such a great song. I love the Heather Soul Train. That is so cool. And, which is very, very, it's just a fun, like, 70s little bop. We'll never have problems again. I love it just because it's delusional and it's aspirational. And so Rebecca's seeing the family. She's kind of fitting in. She does tell Valencia, and she's like, it's okay if we need to take a few days. And Valencia's kind of like, I know you think this is love, and I want to protect you from Josh because he's lost. And it's pretty rough. I think Nathaniel calls Josh Oriental, which is not, okay, but also very much Nathaniel's vibes. And Valencia's like, your relationship is still on waves. And Rebecca, still did ask Josh to, like, draw something with the pen on her to think about it. But Nathaniel really thinks that, Rebecca's insecure. When he's exercising, he pretends there's, like, lions chasing out of them. And Nathaniel threw out all the candy in the office. And he says that Daryl is an emasculated sock puppet, which is rough. And then poor Daryl. I mean, it's a little true, but it's a rough in terms of that. If you hear that, that is my meal saying that my oven is ready, but my meal's already in it because that's just the way I cook. And then Josh's mom is almost naked, getting super moisturized, preparing for all of that. And meanwhile, Rebecca kind of turns all her childhood trauma into a kid, grooving kind of underneath it, you know what I mean? Making sure that that's kind of easier to deal with it. And Josh bonds with her mom, but is like, you know, we could just stop saying the O word. And Karen and George are kind of like, why did Josh give her back an old family hair room that she had hawked in the first place to pay? And Paula defends Rebecca because Miss Hernandez is like, I think her and Josh are moving too fast. Even though, like, they've had a lot of, like, start and stop time, obviously, and they're clearly, like, very in love. But Rebecca is kind of uneasy because Josh doesn't give her goosebumps like he had before. And Paula is like, you know, I still miss my husband, even though I'm mad he cheated. And Rebecca's like, well, no matter whatever you decide, I'm going to support you. But Daryl tries to, like, open up, but doesn't want to, like, nobody really listens to him or whatever. And then we find out about Audra Ski. She comes in December. I think her mom was bonding. Rebecca's mom was bonding with her. And I think we find out that, like, something had happened with Audra's husband, like, when they were having sex, like, he ended up, like, calling her mom or whatever. And her aunt, which is Patty LaPoon, still wants her to believe in God and is glad that they're always questioning, because that's a big thing about the Jewish faith, is that you can ask questions, which I love about it. And I love, love, love Remember That We Suffered. It's so, so good. And I also love that everyone stood up for Daryl to have that candy. It was a very sweet one. And poor Nathaniel, like, kind of has a breakdown. He's like, if we stop improving, we start losing. And then he ends up, like, busting his face with his tooth. And Rebecca's aunt, Patty LaPone, is like, you know, just so you know, love doesn't always fix everything. You're going to always be unhappy and hate yourself. While Josh is out there, like, having a great time, which is, you know, not everything that she needs to hear. Not always so good. And then, she and Josh put himself on a 2-year waiting list for a wedding venue, and then she is also worried about their not having, like, you know, goosebumps. And then they have the advisory about the Santa Ana winds, and she's like, Josh is like, you know, this weather phenomenon just really always, like, messes my allergies and causes strange behavior. And Rebecca imagines this kind of, like, Jerry, you know what I mean, like, singing, little kind of 1950s guy singing all of that. Heather also pointed out that Josh and Rebecca doing PDA online mask their insecurities. And for them, it might be true, but I don't think that that is always the case. I think some people are just bitter about seeing love online. I know it can be that way, but I think sometimes people just want to, like, express it. Daryl is still, like, kind of failing to impress Nathaniel. And Valencia is not, of course, okay with Rebecca being with Josh completely, and she's like, you know, he's not as great as you think she is. And Josh confesses to Father Broad that he's worried about the trip, and Broad is like, you're trying to define yourself through your latest relationship. And they arrive at the Bunch resident, and then her mom is, like, not in a lot of clothes because she's very getting moisturized, which makes it kind of awkward. But, like, let her be her, you know. And then Daryl's being excluded from a big case. And that is also where we learn that Nathaniel removed unhealthy snacks. And then Rebecca's mom interrupts Rebecca and Josh getting into